Go for the youth, about the youth.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my brothers and sisters joining us from different parts of the world. My name is Ali. Tonight's show will be talking about the BRICS. We have our guests here coming from different countries of Africa. My name is Ali, my brothers and sisters that are joining and watching the show. We have been quiet for some time, but I can tell you that we have been preparing to make sure that we come back more powerful. I will start with my first guest here that is also joining us. Professor, please introduce yourself. And Mr. Izai and also Thomas, please mute your mic so that we don't have any echo that is coming on our side. I will start with Professor. Professor, please introduce yourself. Thomas, please mute yourself. Professor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ali, and good evening, all the viewers and listeners to the Youth Podcast. So I'm Prof. Weshuli Joshua from Kenya. Currently, my location is here at Eldoret Town, one of the cities in our country, Kenya, and we are here today to talk about BRICS and its benefits, or what as Africans are we benefiting from this club or organization that is called BRICS. Thank you. Shall be talking more as we continue. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Ali.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor. Now we're moving to the only lady in the house. Please introduce yourself and tell us where you're joining us from.
Thank you so much, sir. My name is Perez Mono. I am joining you from the Republic of Kenya. I come from Nakuru County, and that is where I'm joining you live. And I'm so privileged to be here to discuss the benefits of BRICS to the African continent. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, and also try to test your phone. I think your phone is on a portrait. Put it on landscape so that we can see you very well, and please allow your camera to be on. All right, we're moving to Thomas. Thomas, please introduce yourself to the house and where you're joining us from. Thomas? Okay. While Thomas is still busy sorting at his side, we're moving to Izal. Izal, please introduce yourself to the house.
All right. My name is Lawrence Isel, and then I'm from Ghana, and I think I'm a business person. I'm a businessman, so I always count myself as a business person, and then economist as well. So I think we are here to delve into BRICS, some of the reasons why we have BRICS at our disposal have shown interest in our African continent. So viewers, I think stand by. You're gonna enjoy this, right? Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for all introducing yourself. And we also have our guest here by the name of Dobby Maloba. He will just join as we go, and he will allow his camera to be on as we go. We have learned that, I don't know if you can hear me loud and clear.
All right, that's awesome.
We have learned that the BRICS was taking part between the 22nd and the 24th of August. The summit was taking part in South Africa in Sandton Convention Center. A lot of people were having different wishes. Some were wishing that the BRICS can have its own currency, that we can benefit as Africans. And we have had that there were some conflicts that were coming from the United States because of the BRICS was sitting and they were like, whoo! The BRICS will be one of the superpowers ever in the world. I want to start with BRICS. I want to start with Professor before. Professor, coming from your end, Prof, Do you think Africa is going to benefit from BRICS? And what are we going to benefit? Because we can see that China and also Russia, they are one of those countries that are actually superpowers. They are very, very powerful. How will we as Africans going to benefit from BRICS? Professor Washuli.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. I know it is about talking of the benefits that as African countries we are to benefit from BRICS. Currently looking from this point of view that South Africa so far is the only country which has the membership of BRICS. But when I get to look at South Africa so far since it joined BRICS back in the years in 2010, joining BRICS as the 5th country to be a member. And then when I get to look at South Africa so far, I don't think it gives me an impression of advising other countries to join BRICS or to say that we as Africans will be able to benefit from BRICS as an organization which is coming up to bring together this country, as they say that they have the ideologies to better the economy, to work for the economic growth of each and every nation. But when you look at how BRICS it is working and the relationship and even the gap between the South Africa's economy and other countries that take membership in BRICS, this tells us that South Africa is not benefiting even from these BRICS. So if South Africa as a country that we are using as our litmus paper in this organization, we are not seeing fruits from it, then how can other African countries benefit from the same, if you are to put it? Because look at China, look at the GDP of China, look at the GDP of Brazil, India. When you are to place together their GDP and the 4 countries, South Africa, India, and Brazil and Russia, and then compare it with the GDP of China, then you get that economically China is very strong. So there is not even a balance in between the two. We can see that despite these countries taking membership in these BRICS, but there are still wars amongst these countries. We can see China having issues with India, and yet there is this BRICS. So what is it that it is bringing in common between these two? Because if you are to talk of economy, but see, things to do with the open trade, they only discussed it as an idea that they may later come to adopt it, which I'm not sure if they will adopt it or not. So from the look of things, we may end up benefiting other members of BRICS or from the European countries, but we may not end up benefiting from the BRICS itself, we as Africans. So for me, I'll say I don't see the benefits of these as African countries that we can get from BRICS if other nations are to join in, because so far, looking at South Africa's state, I cannot see any benefit that these people have already gained after being in these BRICS from 2010 to now. Thank you, Mr. Ali.
Okay. Prof, are you saying that South Africa is not benefiting from this thing?
What I'm saying is that so far, I don't see a significant, important, or benefit that South Africa has got from being a member of BRICS. Because look at South Africa's economy since when they joined this BRICS. Is it getting better off, or are things even moving down? So maybe others who have seen the benefits can come to tell me, but for me, I've not seen a significant benefit that South Africa has gained from being a member of BRICS.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. Now let's move to, I think it's a Brics. Brics, let's hear your view in terms of Africans benefiting from BRICS.
Thank you so much. So I beg to kind of differ with Professor in terms of what South Africa or any other African country gets to gain while being a member of BRICS. One thing we need to understand about BRICS is that it seeks to kind of like provide an alternative to the global order. What the global order is that we are always pegging our currencies to the dollar. We are always trying to compete with the West and bow down to the say terms and conditions of the West. Now BRICS is here and giving us an alternative. And it is trying to say that, see here, you can actually de-dollarize. You can actually try and become one of the good member states who does not necessarily need to bow down to the terms and conditions, say, of probably the G7 alliance. One thing I tend to look and see as a prospect of BRICS is bringing in economic development. When we talk about South Africa being a litmus paper and saying that, yes, it has not like kind of accrued some kind of development, I tend to say that it is too early to judge. It is quite so early to judge in as much as South Africa joined in 2010. Because for one, if we look at economic development, I tend to say that South Africa is one of the most developed countries in Africa after, say, Nigeria and also the Republic of Kenya. What you find is that South Africa, even if we look at the developed countries in Africa, is that it has been able to have the rand. And when people are boasting of, for example, say the dollar and probably the euro and pegging their currencies to probably the dollar or even the euro, at least South Africa can say the rand is quite independent. So I tend to say that in as much as we cannot see, like, say, an aggregate or, like, say, a very robust kind of development, but I tend to say that the GDP of South Africa and also some kind of, like, trade has been able to be actualized while South Africa has joined BRICS. We can also tend to say that South Africa has been able to be more of a lobbying power after joining BRICS. I mean, in the African continent, apart from Nigeria and probably Kenya, who else can stand in front of the G7 alliance and say, let's lobby for ourselves, let's lobby for Africa in the spirit of Pan-Africanism? At least we do have South Africa. If the African continent was to stand for itself, we would have had the run. One thing about BRICS is that it goes out there to kind of give the African continent a voice. The BRICS is here, the BRICS alliance is here to give the global South a voice. If you look at the West, and one of the diplomats or one of the ministers says that the West or Europe thinks that all the problems of Europe are the rest of the world's problems, which is not so. South African problem or the African continent's problem are not so necessarily the same as the European continent problems. So now what you find is that when BRICS comes into place, it tends to give the African continent a voice. In as much as I would consent to the professor that China and Russia are also a major kind of like big names over here that might have wanted to carry the day. One thing I beg to differ with Professor is that in as much as Russia and even China are some of the big names and they have very greater GDP as compared to the African continent, we cannot just rubbish and say that for the sake of that, Africa will not gain anything. No, Africa is going to gain. Even if it's going to be like kind of say significant on like 2 or 3%, we tend to say it's going to gain. Because remember, the top agenda of BRICS is to ensure that one, African continent or the global South countries get a voice. Secondly, to de-dollarize and make sure that economic development is kind of spiraling. So if you look at also the best that necessarily means that South Africa is going to develop. Infrastructure can be low, but it is on a scale of like say on a spectrum of 1 to 10, at least we are going to see some development of 3%. Enough of South Africa. Let us come to the African continent as a whole. BRICS is also an oil exporter. BRICS has also partnered with some of the countries that are kind of going to produce oil. In as much as we are seeing that Nigeria has not put its foot inside BRICS, but one thing we tend to say is that, look here, by virtue of the non-alliance of like say India saying that, well, we are neither here nor there, and Nigeria also trying to form the same kind of way, and also Kenya, But one thing I tend to say is that in the next like 3 years, once BRICS has already stabilized, we would see a tendency where Nigeria would hop into BRICS. And therefore, Africa is kind of going to benefit from that by economic development. In as much as I'm kind of circumnavigating around the same point, but to sum everything up, what I tend to look at in my vision for BRICS is that I see an African continent that is joining BRICS to kind of stabilize economically. That on a spectrum of 1 to 10, we've had the West being a common player in the African continent ever since colonialism. But now BRICS has come into place, and on a spectrum of 1 to 10, at least we are going to see some significant value in the GDP of the African continent as a whole. Thank you.
All right. We thank you so much for that. That was very, very powerful. Professor, she spoke that the BRICS is actually becoming a global, I like what she said very well. But Prof, there's some of the points that she spoke about, which I think are very, very much important, because she said it's too early to judge. It's too early to judge because the BRICS is still a baby. It's still growing. We still see other members that are still coming to join the BRICS. My lady, you spoke mouthfully. Professor, what are your views from what the lady she was saying? Because I think she nailed it. Because I was also going to say that the BRICS, we know for sure, the BRICS is going to be a global alternative. We can see that even now, France also even wants to take part. France also wants to be part of the BRICS because they can see that in the upcoming 5 to 10 years or 20 years, the BRICS is going to be very powerful. Because if you look at China, the resources that China is having, you look at the resources that South Africa is having, the resources that Russia is having. Now you see your India that wants to come in. Remember, this week we have learned that India, they have just launched their own space. What does that mean? It means the BRICS is going to benefit more because we know that the whole world, India is the one that is more advanced in terms of technology. I'm telling you, we are going to benefit. The BRICS is going to work for us. That's why even now they came with what's called the New Development Bank. And the New Development Bank is also going to work. And now the only discussion that is left on the table is just for them to discuss the issue of the currency so that we can have our own currency that we can work on. Thank you so much, Malali. You brought serious points on the table. Professor, what are your views based on what the only lady in the house she has said? What are your views, Professor?
Okay, thank you. I think there is something she mentioned that it is too early to judge. I can tell you 10 years is not early. We must correct that. 10 years, it is not early. Because even in Kenya, within 10 years, we would have voted in our president twice. So you cannot say that 2 terms of a president is too early. No, somebody is retiring from work. So within 10 years, if in Kenya here for a president, for example, we judge him after 1 year, because we give him 100 days. And then we see that what can this person be able to do within 100 days? So 10 years is a long time that we cannot say it is too early to judge. But what I want to put it clear, that we cannot say that BRICS is going to work as an alternative to help African as a continent. Because it is a high time that Africans will wake up. We have been used for a long time. BRICS is just also another organization that will come up and will end up being used to benefit those other countries, the superpowers who are coming in. We will end up helping them to grow economically. We'll end up giving them our resources. They will end up coming here to use our country. When we say even issues of free trade, they are the ones who will come invest here, but they will end up benefiting in those investments more than even we ourselves can get from that. So it is not that this is something we should come up and say, no, this one is an alternative. If it is about the dollar, also Brics, look at the origin and the ideology. Where is it coming from? It is not coming from the African continent. So anything that is not coming from African continent, you should know that it will not work for us. It will still work against us, because there is some pictures we are given on the outside. We look at it and we think it is for us. But at the end of the day, you will get that even if the currency that will come up, apart from the dollar, it will not help Africa, but it will help just those other countries. So we should not be fooled up and follow it. Will only benefit them. We have been members of UN. We have been members of very many organizations. But look at what is it that we are benefiting in as Africans. So if we are to come up with our own here in Africa, which is meant to bring up African nations, that is when you can tell us that here, let us work out and bring out Africa. But you cannot tell us that working with people who don't wish us to rise, that they will help us to rise. That one is impossible. We are only being lied.
Professor, I can hear you
Yes.
very well. Yeah. Go through, please go through. Go through before I bring Honorable Isa. Go through.
Yeah, so I just want to put it clear that as much as we are looking at this brick as something that can help us or be an alternative for us, but I can tell you it can only be an alternative if it is an African ideology, if it is having African origin. But if it is from outside, I'm telling you, we'll end up regretting being members of this group. That's why 10 years for us, it is still looking that it is too early to judge.
All right. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much, Prof. You really don't believe into anything that doesn't come from Africa. You only believe into things that are coming from Africa. I hear what you're saying, Prof. Honorable Isai, let's say your view looking on the Brics. What are your view, Honorable Isai, looking on the Brics? Professor, I've touched a couple of points saying that anything that does not come from Africa, we don't have to take it into account, because the only nations that are going to benefit here, we're looking at China and Russia. They're the superpowers into this thing. They're the ones that are going to benefit. We as South Africa, nothing are going to benefit, because already now we already see what is happening now. But I will say that now we're benefiting. Since China came into the market, load shedding is no longer taking part. They've assisted us with some of the resources. We see China is developing some of the China malls in South Africa. We see China is also assisting South Africa, in terms of fighting the power cuts. Much is happening. Honorable Isa, what's your view looking on the Brics? I hear what Professor is saying. I hear what Malady is saying. What is your view, Honorable Isa?
All right. Thank you very much. I think. Sorry. Oh my goodness.
Okay, not a problem.
Let me just. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So we yes.
All right. Perfect. So I think I'll go with what Prof is saying. The reason being is that, Ali, is on the paper, it looks good. We will say that, Brics, African can benefit from it on the paper, economic cooperation. You're talking about trade expansion. You're talking about technology transfer. You're talking about infrastructure development. You can name that. That is the essence of it. That is why they came to do it. They introduced this organization to us. But we always have this thing we call normally, what's the catch? You understand me? What's the catch? Why all of a sudden this? Why are they interested in Africa in the first place? In the conversation, in Prof's speech, he made mention that, it's about time. We have so many resources, my friends. We have so many natural resources. Don't you know the story? They have been taking everything from us. So why can't we have that? Why can't we do that? Why can't we, the African organization, the AU, all the AU summits and all the meetings upon meetings that they have been having, why can't they come up with something of that sort? Like Africa should have their own money. Africa should have their own infrastructure development. Africa should have their own trade expansion. Can't we have back-to-back trade? So what's the catch? So me, whenever that I hear a white person coming to establish something, and then you see us rushing into it, I get a little bit. It's a little bit. I get skeptical about it. So with me, I know on the paper it looks good. Yeah, obviously you know that definitely you end up benefiting economically. We have a trade expansion. We end up expanding our trade, but you never know. Look at some of the reasons why the Europeans came to Africa. Just look at some of the reasons why. Somebody was saying that they said we should. They introduced Christianity during the introduction of Christianity, and they were busy taking our gold, our all the natural resources. So by the time you realize that Christianity has been introduced to us, uh, all the mineral resources was taken from our continent. So it's about time that we should grow our own stuff. We have the infrastructure. We have all the materials that we can be able to use on our continent. So with the benefits, I agree with it, as I said. But then, can't we have our own organization and focus on it? That is it.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Isal. Very quickly on our last round. I hope you can hear me loud and clear, Honorable Isal.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. On our last round, I want to start with the lady in the house where we take our last round before. My lady, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Is it Prezi? I
It is
hope I'm getting your
correct.
name right. Yeah, Perez.
It is
I hope
correct.
yeah, Perez. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. You spoke about the new development bank, and you also spoke about the global alternative that the BRICS is giving others the global alternative. Somebody questioned that why did China invite South Africa to be part of the BRICS, not to invite other African countries. And somebody came and said, no, no, no. They invited South Africa because they are benefiting minerals that are coming from South Africa, so that they want South Africa to be part of the bloc, so that they can be able to get the minerals directly coming from South Africa. Now, my question is going to common currency. What are your views looking on the common currency, looking on Africa as a whole to have a common currency, and also your general closure, your general conclusion on the side looking on BRICS and looking on common currency of Africa? What's your view, my lady? Please unmute.
Thank you, sir. So my view on common currency, first and foremost, just to answer what the first question, or just a comment that was said, why China invited South Africa to join BRICS. I think it's not majorly because of the minerals, but even if it was because of the minerals, we need to understand how international relations work, or for that matter, geopolitics. What happens is this. China would see South Africa as a prospective deal in and of itself. It would say South Africa has this to offer. South Africa has the mines. South Africa has the diamonds. Yeah, South Africa has this and this. And then they would say, what do we have to offer them? And then they look at your interests. What is in the interest of South Africa? What does South Africa gain? Or what does it stand to lose? And then they come with that bait, approach the president or even the ambassador of South Africa and say, this is what you want to offer, and in return, this is what you want to get. I would look at it in form of a mutual relationship, and not in the case of just one person benefiting itself, or him or himself, but both parties benefiting themselves. And then coming to the common currency, I must say that it is going to be so tough for BRICS to have a common currency. I'm not saying that it is impossible, but it's possible, but it's going to be kind of tough. Reason why I'm saying this is that if we look at international politics and how the geopolitical platform has been shaped, for a long time after United States emerged unscathed from the Second World War, what happened was the need to fiat the gold to the dollar, so that we have our reserves being pegged like the dollar being the reserves. So in as much as you have the gold, but now you have us pegging our currencies to the dollar. What you now have in this particular instance is that almost everyone universally has now accepted the dollar. Now, Brics is here in the midst of, we are in the midst of an economic crisis. We are in the midst of like what happened in 2007, 2008. The main interest of almost everyone in the African continent is to have stability. The main interest of everyone in the African continent is to at least have a place whereby they are going to be cushioned in case of another pandemic, in case we have a recession, and then like the dollar kind of goes down. They do not want their currencies to go down. So if they're looking for stability, they are kind of going to be so much, how can I say, they're actually going to trade with caution. Because if I'm going to Brics and I'm being told that I'm going to trade with my own currency, because we do not, if as the supporter of Brics, we do not have a default kind of currency where we are saying that let this be used like as the standard point, like the way someone could trade with the euro or someone could trade with the dollar. We are just saying that when you come to our side, and what you have is that we allow Kenya to trade with the Kenyan shilling, we allow South Africa to trade with the rand, we allow Ghana to trade with the cedis, and so forth. This becomes very problematic because there would be no sustainability in the long run. As one of the former speakers said, it really looks good on paper. But realistically, if we look at the economic crisis, one, I would actually consent that yes, it is actually faulty to try and rely on every member state of the Brics to trade with their own currency, especially in the African continent. Say that all the 53 or 54 member states of African Union decide we are in for Brics. It will become so problematic. I'm trying to view how bilateral trade will kind of take place among the African states, and it would be kind of problematic. Let us come to a proposal. I would say that yes, in as much as China and India don't see eye to eye, and though Russia and India tried to trade with their own currency, and then there was some kind of like flip-flops, but it's still working out. And then now they have tried to hold this thing of like creating their currency. What I can say is that yes, probably they're trying to view a kind of a sustainable plan whereby they want to form something like the euro. You see, the European Union came up with the euro, and though it was from like a very long process. So probably that is what Brics is aiming at. But then let us come to the African currency as a whole. This is what the great Colonel Muammar Gaddafi was actually envisioning for the African continent. But as we say, from what we saw from history, how Colonel Muammar Gaddafi suffered from the hands of the West and how he was labeled. And when the West realized that Africa has plans to develop, you saw what happened. Colonel was actually described as a terrorist, and his country has never healed from the brunt of that. So Africa might decide, yes, let us come up with our own currency and trade in as much as we are still having Brics here. But then the unity in the African continent, we understand that we are also having different trade blocks, SADC, ECOWAS, and also COMESA. So probably what I could say is that if SADC could decide, let us have this, ECOWAS would decide, let us have this, and COMESA would decide, let us have this, then probably would not have one common currency, but at least would have some kind of way in which we could navigate in stabilizing Brics. In that, yes, we know that this currency of SADC is actually the standard level of ECOWAS, and the ECOWAS currency is actually standard of this currency of COMESA. That is actually just a proposal. So probably anyone listening or anyone any kind of economist should actually comment on that. That is what I would say on like the African currency. But again on Brics, allow me to just comment on out of topic
Yeah,
becomes
please.
that if we look at Brics and what the former speaker commented on, it is really not good, and I would still consent, even though I love Brics, that for a white person to come and lure or give the bait to the African continent and say, come and let us create something that is going to be in the center stage of the global platform. I mean, Africans have their minds. Africans are gifted. They have everything in the continent to make them go where they are. But then now here is a white man who comes up with this idea. I can just say that from history, what I can say is that Africa is not cursed, but I think other continents, or I can say the West, are probably jealous of Africa's prosperity. Because anytime we come up with a good model or a good proposal to benefit the African continent, the West is out there thinking, this is how we are going to lose out. Look at a case in
Yeah.
instance when Kokomo said, African Union, this is how we can have the United States of Africa. And then what happened? He died. Now you have here a saying like probably we can have South Africa saying that yes, under probably Mr. Malema coming in and saying this is the vision of Africa. The next thing you hear, certain individuals who had come up with the proposals have now got sanctions. You now have the West bringing in some kind of machineries and bringing in propaganda inside the African continent. So you're always having wars and you do not know who's actually responsible for that. So from history, what we learn is that the West is jealous of Africa's prosperity, and it will do anything to keep on making Africa become a niche. So for that instance, what we generally need is for someone who's actually, this is something by Francis Imbuga.
Yeah. You are muted. Please unmute. Please unmute. Please unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. So this is something by Francis Imbuga in Betrayal in the City, where a character said that from after learning from history or after learning from what happens in politics, that when people are becoming so much jealous of you over time, that when you think of something good and people really try to make you steer off your path, then you need somebody who's actually eaten and got fattened by the calf, that is the government, to come in and assist everyone. Even though it would create a man-eat-man society, but it is actually for the benefit. So for us right now as Africa, we can say because of that unfortunate situation, our hands are tied. What we now need is a situation whereby people who've eaten from, say, the golden calf, that is United States. So people like China and Russia, who at least are our big uncles or our godfathers, would come in and have hold their hands, and then we would walk with them there, and at least we are not going to be bullied as compared to when we stand by ourselves. So we have a scale here. Would you rather have someone like Russia and China hold your hand so that you don't get bullied by the G7 alliance and at least gain to kind of like benefit on a scale of like 1 to 10, 5%, or have the West keep on trampling under you and you kind of, yes, benefit, but you still have loans to pay and all that? That is my parting shot. Thank you.
All right. I don't know if our brother here, Toby Maloba, before we move to Professor Washiri, I don't know if our brother Toby Maloba, if you have something to say before we go through Toby Maloba. Do you have something to say, my brother, before we take Professor? Please unmute, Toby. All right. I think he will just come joining us. All right, Professor. I'm very pleased with what my lady here she's saying. She's saying that most of these people are jealousy of the progress of Africa. The moment when Africa is starting to progress, they start to come with things that we don't know. As we are wrapping up the show, Professor, very quickly, looking on Africa having its common currency, and also looking on the BRICS generally. What are your views, Professor? Because I can hear what you said is that anything that does not originate from Africa, we should not take it into consideration. If this block was coming from Africa, we should all consider it and empower it. But let me tell you, what is amazing is that we saw the bond that was actually listed firstly into South Africa, which was bought by a high number of people, which was been amazing. When we saw a high number of people buying this bond, which is falling within the New Development Bank, and if I'm correct, I believe this New Development Bank is coming from this block called the BRICS. Now imagine if they were able to list a bond, and this bond was able to generate millions and millions within one country. Imagine what will happen if it goes to the other countries. Before I take you, Professor, let's take Thomas very quick, and then I come back to you, Professor. Thomas, are you able to hear us?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Thomas, what is your view looking on the BRICS and also looking on the BRICS in general, Thomas? Oh, Thomas is having some technical issues. I'm coming back to you, Professor. Professor Washili?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ali. I think I've listened keenly to what Perez has been explaining, and I think she was in agreement with me because she has stated very well. She has stated very well that the Westerners are very jealous of us. Now, my question is, when your enemy is cooking food that is looking delicious to you and is telling you, welcome, eat, will you eat? What if there is poison in the food? So you cannot say that these people are jealous of the progress in Africa, and yet they're the same people who are coming up with the idea of BRICS, and you're following it. It will mean you are still going to end up in a ditch. So we cannot follow that route. That's why I started by saying that if the idea would have originated from Africa, because looking at BRICS, you have mentioned that there is some things that China came up with in South Africa. You have seen them opening malls. Those malls is not that are benefiting South Africa. South Africans, you are using those malls as you, even here in Kenya, but of course we have malls. Recently in Nairobi, we opened what we call China Square. But it is us using our money to buy things from there, but it is still the currency, the benefit, the revenue still going back to them. Kenya is only getting a small percentage on this mall. So it is not that we are the ones benefiting. They are the ones who are coming here. We are opening a wider market for them. There are so many Chinese currently in our country here, Kenya. They are doing even up to small businesses that Kenyans should be doing. So there is competition in market that has come in Kenya as a result of China coming here. And this was when Kenya signed a treaty with China about this business thing. But do we see Kenyans in China doing same businesses there? So why is it that we are the one allowing them in our countries to come and benefit from here? Then we are there saying, you know, we are cooperating globally. So if this idea of going away with the one she has been mentioning of the currency, I'll still say this, that as much as we look at it as an alternative, that it can give us that currency. But remember that that currency, it still will not work for us because these countries are focused on themselves. They are also selfish. That's why they are fighting to be superpowers on their own. We can see them fighting one another. You have, in fact, Perez, you have mentioned very well about China and India, that they don't see each other eye to eye. And then they are there fighting their own problems, and they want to lie to us to pull us into their fights. So here in Africa, you said about Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, may his soul rest in peace. He was one of our greatest leaders who was fighting for a common currency in Africa. And if Colonel Muammar Gaddafi was done away by these same people, then we cannot trust them. So if our problem in Africa, as you have mentioned, that we are not united, so it means that we need to work out how to unite Africans to come up with our own things, not following what other people have started for us. Because that's how, when we be disunited, they will get a chance to fight us. How will we focus on Brics when we don't have unity in our country? So they will have time to benefit from us, but here we are still confused because we are still working on our unity. So we don't need to get ourselves into other commitments. Let us first solve our issues at hand before we start involving ourselves into other international things that will not even, the ideology, the origin of it is not for Africans. It's for they themselves. So they will end up building themselves. They're just building blocks. There you have mentioned of the dollar, and then the euro came up. So Brics is also just coming up as a dollar or a euro, and it still work for them and not for us. So it is a high time that we change the way we do things. It is a high time that as Africans, we start looking at things in a different way, that we should work on our unity. We should work on coming up with our own block, but not just following what they are doing. Because as much as we think they're helping us, it's not that they're helping us. What they're doing in South Africa, how many youth in South Africa are unemployed? Are there not people who are unemployed in South Africa? How is business flourishing in South Africa? So the GDP of China is greater than the GDP of the other 4 countries which are in Brics. Combined together, you can imagine that. So if that is the case, it is because China is continuing to invest in other countries, using them because it is increasing a wider market of their products. And remember, its productivity is very high. So at the end of the day, what are we doing? We are just benefiting them, and we'll keep remain to be the same. So we can ask ourselves, to what extent are these Brics innovative force for changing the global governance? How can we access that internal institutionalization of these Brics? And to what degree are the Brics creating a progress or a process of external Brics institutionalization? So me, I still don't agree with the idea of working with Brics, because if for 10 years, and we see South Africans, Malema is still making a lot of noise because of the suffering that South Africans are going through. So I don't know, where is Brics? Is the Brics really helping even the economy in South Africa? So I don't advise even Nigeria or other nations to get to Brics. Instead, let us sit down as Africans, let us negotiate, let us talk, and let us see what will work out for us, not following other people, because we'll end up losing it. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Ali.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor. I concur with what you are saying. We should focus on African matters. You know, Professor, looking at the economy of China and looking at the economy of Russia, these are the 2 countries that are very, very powerful. These are some of the countries that we know for sure the United States is looking at them. But I assure you, Professor, let's hope for the best that Africa can change, because we see what is happening. You see what is happening in Niger. A lot of things are happening. Apparently, according to what we're hearing on the media, we have been told that there is a conflict between France and also Niger, if I'm correct. That's what we are hearing. But we hope for sure that it's not going to affect a lot of things. Now, Professor, very quickly, I see Thomas is trying to correct, but due to some technical issues, he's not able to join. Now, on conclusion, I want to start with Izal. Izal, how are you concluding the show, Izal? And what are your views? Please turn on your camera, Mr. Izal. And also, okay, before we go through, we have a POI that is coming from Toby Maloba. Toby Maloba, what is your POI, sir? Please unmute. Toby, please unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Just that we cannot see you, but we can hear you.
I'm not certain about the visibility of my camera.
We can see you. We can see you very well, very, very well.
All right. Good evening to everyone, and I would like to thank you so much for the opportunity to be here on the podcast. It is just that I was unable to join you all from the beginning of the podcast, but I've managed to absorb most of the important information about political relations in Africa, and also in the context of BRICS and the recent developments within the BRICS Association. So the main question which I would like to pose is towards Professor Washuli. It is with regard to his statement saying South Africa and Africa at large has very less or even nothing to benefit from BRICS, of which I believe I heard him very well. So I would like to further extend the context of my question to the part of the statement which Julius Malema mostly mentions, that Africa must unite and we must establish a borderless Africa. So I would like to hear your point on it. As you say that Africa has very less or nothing to benefit from BRICS. So do you stand with the ideology of Julius Malema saying Africa must be a borderless nation, or a borderless continent, whereby it can be the United Nations of Africa or not? Of which I assume the high possibilities are that you are going to probably agree with that statement or ideology by Julius Malema. So from my view, do you think this and ideology of Africa must unite, is it really practically possible, or maybe it is only possible as an idea? I'm not talking from the point of not really believing in Africa. I believe in it so much. But if you may look at Africa on its own, uh, our public officials are highly failing to govern African countries, small as they are. Then what is going to happen if we open the borders? For example, we have high influx from people from a lot of countries in Africa, and most of those people who are flocking into South Africa, they are flocking illegally. So, and when they illegally enter into South Africa, they are engaged in the most horrific activities such as human trafficking and so on. So here is the question. I would like to just shorten it up from how I have made its overview. That, do you think Africa is capable of uniting, as the Julius Malema preaches, that Africa can unite, Africa can make one nation without borders? Is it a practically possible ideology, or he's just randomly talking? Because if we are to open the borders, South Africa, is it really going to benefit? Because now, for example, I'm just giving a practical and easy example. I have 100 Rand. Professor Washuli has 50 Rand. Then Mr. Ali has 10 Rand. Then we say, let us combine whatever we have. In the combination of what we have, is it going to benefit me, or is going to benefit Ali and Professor Washuli? Thank you so much.
All right. So to respond to that quickly, with your permission, Mr. Ali. All right. So as you have mentioned it, I thank you that at least you are asking questions and at the same time trying to answer them back. So for me to give you my point of view is that, one, you have asked if it is possible to unite Africa as Julius Malema preaches. Me, I'll say it is not possible to unite Africa as Julius Malema preaches, but it is possible to unite Africans, as I believe, if Africans decide that indeed we need this unity and we can come together. Look at United States of America. Is it one country? There are several states which have come together. And how many states are there in total? So if it was possible to unite them, and now those countries that they're just like counties in a country here in Africa, but there are very large countries which have united together to form the United States of America. So if that was possible, then why not possible in Africa? So it is something that it is possible. It is just that as Africans, we like being at the mercy of the whites. We like following the ideologies, just like the idea of Brics. It will only end up coming up with a currency that will put us at their mercy. So we'll end up being controlled by them. And we look at up to them in everything that they get to do. If they don't succeed, we say this one is impossible. Then why don't we be positive and tell ourselves that if USA were able to combine and be one, then African, it is also possible. If we are to combine, when Malema is talking about the issue of having Africa to be borderless, it is not that we are breaking up our borders and now saying this is this. No, we are just states, but he's just referring to the unity that we need as Africans. We may have our own presidents, we may have our own countries, we may still speak our own languages, but if we are to unite to have a common currency, if we are to unite to communicate, even to have one common language for us as Africans, apart from our vernaculars, like to work together in Africa. What he's talking about is our own economic independence as Africans, to help us not to continue relying on the whites. Because look at them, look at the China, how powerful it is, and they only speak Mandarin. The Chinese, they don't speak English. But here in Africa, we have to use we have to use English. We have to use everything that is coming from the white. So we are over depending on the whites too much, that it is really deteriorating our economy, our own unity and everything. So it is not that it is impossible, or it is not that it's just an ideology on paper. It is when we come up and look very well, you will get that it is possible, only that even the whites, they are very much aware that if Africa gets to unite together to be one and have their own common currency, they are going to be very powerful. Even there is no other country that will be powerful as Africa, because here it is the home of resources. But now they end up fighting. That's why they are into many of our countries, trying to bring up some ideas that look good on the outside, but on the inside, it is just to work against us. They end up dividing our countries. People are fighting one another. They are coming up with the ideas that are just separating Africans. So what they are after is just making sure that there is no unity in Africa. So it is not that they are thinking or planning anything good for us. So Honorable Maloba, I just want to put it clear to you that yes, it is possible. Only that when we don't look at this idea, just like if it is in South Africa there, you are looking at it as something that Malema is just preaching. No, he's trying to revitalize the right African mindset. The mindset that we say that yes, we can as Africans, and we get to move towards it. So we come together, and this is possible. But when we tell ourselves this one is impossible, of course, it is all about what we believe. Because you there in South Africa, when you say it is possible, here in Kenya, I say it is possible, and we combine. Don't you think that that is a great force that is coming up? And if you are able to start combining together nations, just like you see, this BRIC idea that we are trying to follow, it is nations which came together. So it is also working to join these countries together for their own good. So we joining them will not help us, but also we should tell ourselves, if countries are coming together to form such alliances, to work together, then why don't we also come together as Africans and form our own alliances that will bring us together? So it is possible, it is workable, if we believe in it, you and I, not when we doubt or just think it is something that it should be on paper or it's just a simple ideology. Yes, it is an ideology, that it is practical. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Ali. Hello, Mr. Ali. I'm unable to get you. I can just see you
Professor,
talking.
Okay, can you hear me now, Professor?
Yeah, I can now hear you.
Awesome, Professor. Very quickly, Prof, let's run to Thomas. Thomas Karanteng Ayansu. Thomas, are you there? Yeah, Professor, it looks like Thomas is having some technical issues. Very quickly, when we wrap up, Professor, Mr. Maloba, please, in less than a minute, conclude the broadcast. And from there, we move to Mr. Izal with less than a minute. Then we conclude the broadcast. Then, Professor, you're the last person to speak. Then we wrap up the show. Mr. Maloba, please, what's your conclusion? What have you learned from this short broadcast that we had today in less than a minute, sir?
Hello, once again. Thank you so much for the opportunity to make a conclusion in this podcast. In short, I can say it was very informative and it gave me a brief summary of the recent developments on Brics, including the possible critiques, because I've realized that in almost everything which may appear to be perfect or beneficial to us here in South Africa and Africa at large, there will mostly or all the time be critiques towards that particular thing, no matter how good or beneficial it may seem. However, at the end of the day, some of the important things we have to look on is whether that particular thing, its positive aspects, are they less than the negative aspects? So if the positive aspects are more than the negative ones, in all, it
right.
means that thing is not really, really that bad. So, in my view, I can say, as much as Brics has its own negative aspects, but in all, it appears to be an association which is quite beneficial to Africa and South Africa at large. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, my brother. I don't know if Thomas is able to come through. Thomas, are you able to come through? Because it looks like you're having issues with your sound. Let's hear one more time. Thomas? Nope. Thomas is not winning. He's having technical issues. Let's take Mr. Izal very quickly. Mr. Izal, in less than a minute, how are you wrapping up the show, Mr. Izal? In less than a minute, how are you concluding the show? What have you learned from the podcast? What are your views based on what you've been talking about? In less than a minute, we're wrapping up the show. Your camera is off, sir. We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
facing some challenges with the network, so
Not a problem.
I wanted to, yeah. So basically, I was with the opinion that I will still stick to what I was saying, that Africa may face some challenges and some limitations in its association. It is important to consider potential risk. The first one that I'm always concerned about is, the potential drawback is the risk of increase in debt. Trust me, African countries may become, it will become heavily indebted to BRICS nations if they rely too heavily on the loans and investments. No, this can lead to a debt trap. You understand me? So where countries struggle, we are struggling to repay their low debts. Presently it's happening in Ghana. You understand what I'm saying? So if you look at some of the budgets, they draw it, they go for it, they support you, and then we end up also doing what? Paying quadruple of the amount of money that was given to us. So today I will just end this one to say that no, Africa can still do it. We can still unite and then stand on our feet to say that we can do the thing, come together, as Prof said, unity is the key, and then so that we can work towards and achieving our goals. Thank you very much, Ali, for this wonderful session.
All right. Thank you so much. Now I'm moving to Professor Washiri. Professor Washiri, let's try one more time and see if we can get Thomas, because Thomas is having some technical issues. Thomas, please unmute. Let's see if we can get you now. Thomas, are you there?
I think
Thomas, are
he
you there?
sent
Please unmute Thomas.
he
I
sent
think,
his I think he has his statement. He sent it to me, so I'm not sure whether I'll push it through. It's quite
yeah,
a page. He wrote a page. So I will share the statement with you.
okay. Okay, not a problem. You will share with us. It looks like there's some network issues in Ghana. All right, Professor, we had much. We had our lady saying that, you know what? There are a lot to be said about. Talking about the new Central Development Bank, talking about the BRICS. Actually, it's a global. A global option for people to come into BRICS, saying that the BRICS must come with its own currency so that others they can be able to say, hey, we're no longer going to use the dollar. We hear others saying that South Africa is benefiting a lot from the BRICS. Professor Washiri saying that no. South Africa is not benefiting anything from BRICS. We know for sure that Russia and also China, the superpowers, much have been shared, Professor. Professor, we're about to wrap up the show, Prof. What is your view? How are you concluding it based on what you're talking about on BRICS and Africa, looking on the issue of common currency? How are you wrapping up the show, Professor?
Thank you again, Mr. Malekane. I think for me, in the way that I'm going to wrap up the show tonight, I'll say that let us get to understand the language that other nations speak. Because when Europe, when they speak of the World Bank, when they mention the World Bank, Bikin, you may think that the World Bank is also encompassing Africa, but no, it is talking of the world on their own, whereby Africa is out. We are just there to receive aid from them. When we are speaking about the globe, Africa is not part of it. It is them, not us. So it is a high time that let us talk of African Bank. Let us talk of our own globe. Let us come up with our own things and let us stop being at the mercy of the whites. It is a high time that we have to rise and revitalize the right mindset. Yes, indeed, as Africans, we have to unite. BRICS, it may look as a good idea, just like a man who seduces a woman with sweet words, just to end up in a marriage together. The person you are accepting is not the same person now you are having. Things get to change on the ground. So let us be keen. Love is no more blind. So Africans, we have to rise and also open our eyes and stop being ending up being seduced by the whites with their ideologies. Let us now stand up on our own, be independent minded, and come up with our own ideas, and let us follow them because it is workable. I believe in Africans that indeed we can do it if we stand up and unite. Thank you, Mr. Ali, and thank you to all the viewers tonight.
Thank you so much, Professor Washiri. Professor Washiri joining us live from Nairobi. Professor Washiri joining us live from Kenya. We also have Honorable Izal that is also joining us live coming from Ghana. And we have also Thomas Korantengi is having some technical issues with network, joining us live from Ghana, and also myself here and my friend here, Dobby Maloba, joining live from South Africa. We'd like to say thank you to everyone who was able to participate and join. We are talking about the BRICS. We're talking about African matters here. We have landmark coming from Professor Arov. I'm sorry, Professor Washiri J, and also Lawrence, and also our sisters that are able to come in, and Toby Maloba. We say thank you so much. In my language, Professor, when we say thank you, we say Rialeboha. In your language, when you say thank you, Professor, what do you say?
Here we say Asante Sana.
Asante Sana. Okay, Mr. Israel, in your language, when you say thank you, what do you say?
Mundase.
Mundase, Asante se, Kialebu. Leshaleng Habu. Yeah?
Medase. Medase. It's Medase.
Medase, Asante Sana. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of evening, Kialebu. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Asante Mutasa.